Okay, let's figure out how to solve while problems when we have a what's the result problem that includes a while. All right, as always, very first thing I do, match up the matched curly braces. So I have one set here, and it also helps to pick a pen with a pen color, but pick and match the curly braces. So there I have a block of code. Next thing I do, look for my keywords. What are my keywords? If, switch, while, do while, and for. Well, in this case, I see this is a while problem. Next, I look for the variables in my conditional test, and I see I have two that are important here, X and Z. I make a column heading for every variable in my problem, and then I just work the problem from top to bottom, updating the variable values. So the first one is X is assigned a value of 1, Y is assigned a value of 2, and Z is assigned a value of 3. And now I get to my conditional test. X less than or equivalent to Z. At this point, that's asking is 1 less than or equivalent to 3. And in this case, yes, that is true, so I am going to do this block of code that follows the while statement. The first statement says to add 5 to Y. So now Y has a value of 7. And then I add 1 to X because plus plus X means to actually change the value of X by adding 1. So now it's 2. So when I reach the closing curly brace of a while loop, I go right back to the while and evaluate that condition again. Now it's asking me, is 2 less than or equivalent to 3? Because X has a value of 2 and Z has a value of 3. Well, that's true. So I'm going to say add 5 more to Y. That gives me 12. And I add 1 more to X, and that gives me 3. And now I come up back to my while statement, and I'm asking, is 3 less than or equivalent to 3? Because X is 3 and Z is 3. So that's 3 less than or equivalent to 3. And that's true again, because 3 is equivalent to 3. So that means I execute this loop again. Add 5 more to Y and get 17. And then I get to my X, and it says to add 1 to X. It's now 4. Come back up here. X has a value of 4. Z has a value of 3. Is the conditional test true or false? Is 4 less than or equivalent to 3? No, so that's false. And when I hit a false, I skip down to outside the loop. And in this case, I have no more expressions, so I'm done. So my ending values of the variables, X is 4, Y is 17, and Z is 3. Now notice something. It is a common mistake if you don't use this technique of keeping a running list of the current values of your variables. It's very tempting and a common mistake for folks to look at the conditional test and say, oh, okay, the last time that's right is when it's 3 and 3. But you have to remember that when this was correct, it executed this again and incremented my X. You really need to say what was the first value of X that made this conditional test false. Or better yet, use this technique. It's primo. Okay, next. All right, this looks an awful lot like the last one, but I don't make any assumptions. I go ahead and solve it using my technique. Find my matching curly braces and draw a box. Find my key word. In this case, it's while. And then look at my conditional test and the controlling variables that are in the conditional test. In this case, X and Z. Make a column for each of my variables. And I start at the top and work my way down. Well, here X is 1. y is 2, z is 3. I hit my conditional test. Because x is 1 and z is 3, this is asking, is 1 less than 3? Sure is, so I go ahead and execute this block. This statement says y plus equal 5. That means add 5 to the current value of y. Gives me 7. And then plus x says, hey, add 1 to the value of x, and so I get 2. I hit the bottom of the closing brace of the body, so I come back up to the while. Now x is 2 and z is 3, and it asks, is 2 less than 3? That's true. So I'm going to execute the body of the loop again. First one tells me add 5 to y, so that becomes 12. And add 1 to x, so x becomes 3. And I hit the closing brace and come back up here again. Now x is 3 and z is 3. So I say, is z less than, or is 3 less than 3? False. Notice it is false now because there's a different logical operator there. This operator is only true when x is less than 3 or than z. The value in x is less than the value in z. So this is false, and my loop is done, and I come back outside the loop, and here I have my ending values of my variables, the bottom of these columns, 3, 12, and 3. Next problem. Okay, again, very similar to the last one, but if you just say, oh, it's the same problem and solve it, you're going to make a mistake. Find all the matching pairs of curly braces and draw your box. That's the block. Next, look for my keyword, while. And then my conditional test, or in the case of a switch, it would of course just be the variable. But for whiles, I look at the whole conditional test, and the controlling variables there are x and z. Let's get my columns up here, x, y, z, and start at the top. X is 1, y is 2, z is 3. I hit my conditional test. Now I have to start looking at this. It says while x is greater than z, well, because x is 1 and z is 3, it's saying while 1 is greater than 3. And that's not true. Very first time. False right off the bat. So I'm skipping this altogether. And my ending values are 1, 2, 3. It is possible that a loop will never ever be executed. Okay, ooh, this problem looks a little longer, so it should be more interesting. And interesting is always more fun. So let's look at this one. First step, matching curly braces and box it out. There's my block. My keyword is while, and my conditional test is x less than or equivalent to z. So x and z are my controlling variables, but I put every variable here, not just my controlling ones. And I start at the top. Assign a value of 1 to x, value of 2 to y, and a value of 3 to z. Hit my first conditional test. X is 1 and z is 3. So is 1 less than or equivalent to 3? Well, yes, it is. So I do this first. I know I'm going to execute this block. This says add 5, 7. And then add 1 to x, so it becomes 2. And I come back up. Now x is 2 and z is 3. Is it true that x is less than or equivalent to z? Sure is, because 2 is less than or equivalent to 3. I'm going to execute this again. Add 5 to my y and get 12. Add 1 to my x and get 3. And I have hit the closing curly brace, and I come back up here and I say, okay, x is 3 and z is 3. Is it true that 3 is less than or equivalent to 3? Yep, they are equivalent. So I do this again. Add 5 to y and get 17. Then I have my plus plus x, which increments that by 1. And I come back up, and now I'm at my conditional test again. X is 4, z is 3. So is it true or false? 4 less than or equal to 3. Well, that's false. So I'm done with the loop. But notice this time, when I end my loop, this snippet includes some more code. I cannot skip that code. If I'm asked to evaluate the entire snippet, not just the while loop, the entire snippet, well, then I have to keep on going. Well, z plus equals 3 means to add 3 to my z, so now it's 6. And then I come to my last statement, and it says add 1 to the y, so now it's 18. And I have my ending values of 4, 18, and 6. Alrighty, one more problem. Okay, let's start. I always match up my curling braces first, but I don't have any curly braces. When that situation occurs, I have to remember that that means that the block that is the body of this loop is just the first statement that follows the conditional test. In this case, only plus plus x is part of the body of the loop. Fortunately, it's also the effective test, so we should be okay. My keyword is while. My conditional test is x less than or equivalent to z. So let's list my columns. Alrighty, start at the top. Assign 1 to x. Assign 2 to y. Assign 3 to z. And now I'm at my conditional test. X is 1 and z is 3. So is it true or false that 1 is less than or equivalent to 3? Well, that's true, so I'm going to do the body of the loop, which in this case is just the one statement. Add 1 to x and make it 2. As soon as I do that, I go back up to my while. Now I have x is 2 and z is 3, so I say, is 2 less than or equivalent to 3? Yes, it is. So I'm going to do the body of the loop again, which is just the plus plus x. So I increment that to 3. Now I have x of 3 and z of 3, and I ask, is 3 less than or equivalent to 3? Yes, it is. So do the body of this loop again, which is plus plus x, which means add 1 to x. It's now 4. Come back up to my while. With x of 4 and z being 3, I'm asking, is 4 less than or equivalent to 3? In this case, nope, this is false. Now again, it's false, so I go to the first statement after the body of the loop. And remember, the body was just that one statement now, so now I'm going to execute this one. Y plus equal 5. Well, that means add 5 to y, get 7. Now notice, this was tricky because this line was indented, and a lot of times for readability we indent all the bodies, all the statements that are part of the body. So the indent meant that to the computer, then it would try to execute that. But notice, this y plus equal 5 is not part of the body. And don't let that being indented fool you. You got to look for your curly braces. So I have executed that, and now I have my ending values of x is 4, y is 7, and z is 3. I hope that helps. Now if you want more practice, remember to do your Loopinator problems. Your Loopinator program just keeps generating brand new loop problems, and you can run it forever and never run out of loop